let's. Okay, so we have called the meeting to order at 3:04 p.m. We've taken roll. The agenda has been approved, and we are addressing the one agenda item, which is discussion surrounding interviews for the 3 proposals submitted for city planner position. And Commissioner Phillips is opening with a statement.
So, again, what I was saying that of the 2 that we've had yesterday. And again, we had the one today, but of those 2, I thought that there was a much better connection with the people that we'd be working with the WSB group. And the same thing that I see with the interaction that there is with Stan Tech, who knows the city really well. So giving my choices between those 2 is what I'm really looking at. That's what I feel at this time.
And just starting out in a very general note like that, broad strokes. Out of the 3, does anybody have anything different? Because for me personally, and we haven't even discussed this, that I felt there was a really organic, instantaneous connection with the first group that we interviewed, the WSB group. And I just felt a real strong chemistry with them. I liked the second group very well. I did not feel that connection with SRF, which was the second group that we interviewed. I thought that if push came to shove and that was the only group that interviewed with us, that they would be competent to get the job done, no doubt. But that connection that makes you feel like you can work closely with people and that you feel like you have a relationship before you actually spent any time on investing in a relationship. I did not get that with that group. With Stan Tech, I felt that we have had the luxury of time spent together and that we absolutely have a good working rapport with them. And so of the 3 groups, I think personally that I could work with any of them, but I felt a connection with WSB and with Stan Tech. And just when you look at the amount of time that we have spent with Stan Tech, I think that the connection was actually stronger with the WSB group because I had never even met any of them before. And their ideas and their approach was very engaging to me. And I felt that group where what was the second group? Where SRF and Stan Tech were very focused on the ordinance, the writing of code, which is absolutely key to the success of our future growth. I felt like the other group was very focused on that, but was very focused on other things that we would be asking about, and that would be in creating a vision for the city and how to engage the people and get really tremendous buy-in and that type of thing. And so I feel that from my perspective, my choices would be either between WSB and Stan Tech.
I'll make one other comment too, and maybe it was in the interview process. We didn't spend as much time looking on a weekly basis or a monthly basis with the WSB on who would be here, like a Bill type person that there is. We looked more, or I felt more of the discussion was on the writing of the code versus the interaction that we're going to need also on a monthly basis, or it could be almost a daily basis that there is that goes on with Bill. So I just want to make that comment as well.
So anybody, feel free to speak as you are so led at this moment. Or initial, like, shooting from the hip reaction to either what you heard in an interview and or what you read in their proposals.
I thought all three could certainly tackle the code, tackle graphical, tackle that side of it that we are really looking for. The one thing that really stood out to me, there are a couple different things actually, but with, I believe it was WSB, if I'm looking at my notes right, talked about also doing a steering committee with more frequent updates. And I thought that is actually a really great idea. We had not even, we've never talked about that,
No, we
and
hadn't.
I'm thinking no matter what, that is absolutely, when we start talking about getting the EDA, getting city government, getting zoning, all of these different groups, maybe another seat that would just be community interest chair or whatever it is. It seemed to really be a great idea, and they also really look like they took time to look at our community and try to think about how do you communicate outside of focus groups, or how to communicate outside of, let's go have a meeting at City Hall, and if you're interested in zoning, please come between this time and this time on a weeknight that may not be convenient for most people. And so I do think they really did a nice job of that outreach component, that we really, to make sure we are going down the road that the community is looking for our long-term look and feel and where our community needs to grow. So I do have to say that I liked that side of it as well. So for me, I think all three could do a very good job. With the end product is all gonna be, our code is updated, there's graphics, but how do you get from point A to point Z? And to me, those two are probably going to be the stronger based on just those other pieces in between. And with that, I also like the idea of, for me, it's a strong idea of having that outside look at what is our code today and having that fresh perspective. And I do think the question was asked to Stantec, and they also did address that. As far as they've got people on staff who really have not been in the weeds on our code looking at it. So I do think they address that as well. But I also do think that the one WSB did a very nice job on looking at what we've already got out there.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, I think WSB brought a lot of, they looked at our city before they put this proposal together, and they looking around, see what our town, what our town consisted of. Then they come down and looked at it, took pictures of it. I mean, like their ability to do their own engineering instead of calling somebody on the outside. That was the impression from SRF, that they didn't have their own engineers on staff. They had somebody available to talk to engineering, but it wasn't that, they didn't actually have them on staff. And when it comes to what we're doing here in planning and zoning, we're pretty engaged with engineers. You know, they're always involved in what's going on, you know, and the planners, they're kind of working hand in hand together. I think between them and Stantec, and WSB and Stantec, I think that's kind of the thing we really need to lean at. Kind of need to choose from one of them two.
My question on that would be consistency, you know, with the people. We have the consistency with Stantec and the other company, you know, they had their own, so we would have that consistency.
I think consistency is a big thing.
Yeah,
Huge.
it definitely is.
Who we're working with, and
Mhm.
Yeah, and I felt that the interaction that there was with the presenters was very positive with those two, with, you know, same thing with Stantec today. That you have that interaction, that they felt like they were mixed and jiving, you know, and I felt that same way with the WSB, that same way that it was there.
And whereas with Stantec and WSB both, I felt like it was a conversation that was happening between people that were familiar with each other. That was what both of those conversations felt like to me. With SRF, I felt like it was a presentation with questions and answers as opposed to a real conversation that was going on. You know, one of the things that just occurred to me, literally, a few minutes ago, was that with WSB, one of the three people that are gonna be working so closely with us, if they were awarded the contract, was Chevelle. I'm guessing that Chevelle must be mid-20s at the oldest.
Something like that.
And she would bring a perspective that the other groups did not necessarily have. Now, the SRF group, those two were probably in their 30s, I'm guessing. But we didn't have the connection with them. That's the thing that's missing there. With Stantec, Aaron's probably younger, and I think Joe's younger than I am, but they are definitely beyond the 30-something, stage, which is the largest portion of our city demographic at this point in time. And so if you've got people in the group that are all my age or within 10 years of me, then we may not be able to think like, 20 and 30 somethings at this moment in our life. But with the WSB group, we've got a 20 something in there that would pull us into that world more effectively than us just going, well, this is what I understand that they're into. And this is what, I've been told how they like to function or how they like to be connected with, where we would actually have a person from that demographic that would be part of the team.
The Chevelle, she's the one that's in charge of the public engagement, so.
He is the one
that
in
would be
charge of
the-
public engagement.
the way to
That's
get-
key.
Way to get younger people involved, we do have that young demographic. I guess I never looked at it being that it was that young,
Well, and
So,
when you start talking a steering committee like they had brought up, that's one thing that town I lived in at one point had done where they had a steering committee basically for a town celebration, but they had asked at the local school, so I was like a youth rep on their little community thing at one point. I
Yeah.
couldn't vote, but I was sitting at some of the city meetings occasionally. But that, is something that when we start thinking about a group like that, is do we get somebody local that is younger and has that perspective of what is there to do in Orinoco and how do we communicate with the different groups?
and one question I have, because I was not in the interview, but in terms of references, do we know, or maybe it would come after the point of us deciding, hey, these are the two front runners, to start checking some references with other cities to see how how do they interact with them? Have there been any issues with communication and other things? Because I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
Here, Jim, take a look at that other page that's there, that kind of, no.
This one?
No,
the one you have in your hand.
This one,
yeah.
Okay.
Which will kind of help, give you a little bit more of some of the stuff that they.
Clarification.
yeah, and I see that. And my question was just really from another customer, how have the dealings been? What have the interactions been like? That
Personal interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, are they
personal
actually what we perceive them to be?
Right,
Right.
because you can say one thing on paper, you can get sold a bill of goods on paper. But then in reality, it's like,
To me,
Whoa.
it's the level of service and what's your responsiveness to questions or concerns that come up? And how long does it take you to get back
Right.
to us?
right, because they say, yeah, we definitely communicate, we're involved in schools, we know what's going on with their code and whatever else, but the real true interaction could be a totally different thing.
Maybe have a phone number, give them a call.
And one thing that there is to keep in mind too, is we know the responsiveness of what Stantec has done.
Right.
And, you know, the comfort that's there, we've seen with Phil, how he's interacted with people in the community when he's been on Zoom. And he's
We know the
there.
professionalism.
We know what's there, so. The other is unknown versus known, and so those are something also to kind of to keep in mind. And I don't want a time element to be the total determining factor of what we're doing here. We followed really good on what we've done with the WFP to this point to be able to get the interviews out of the way. I mean, as a suggestion, I would almost say, you know, let's bring the other two back again, or even if it's on a Zoom. Just to have another interaction with both of them, so that the rest of the committee can get a chance to understand what's going on. Jim, you didn't get a chance to be there for that, and same thing with Colleen too. Or with Scott, to be able to see that, okay?
Or actually witness it with another city.
Yeah, and to do that, but I'm just saying, because this is such a big investment that we're looking at doing, it's not something that, okay, this is gonna be, you know, $200, this is it, off we go. If we make a mistake, we can do it again. We don't wanna make a mistake. You know, and so I'm just, I don't want to rush everything, that if we need to take the time to do that again, I think both of them would be open to know that, okay, we've eliminated, we're down to these two. They know that we've done our due diligence, that there is to say, okay, this is where we're at. I think that the other thing too is I'm looking at Stantec on what they have. When you look at their chart versus the other charts that there are. It seems that Stantec has more of an interaction with the city staff before it has an action to discuss it with planning and zoning. So every step that there is, it went to city staff first before it came to planning and zoning. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to go. This is something that we need to work with here at planning and zoning. And we've got some very dedicated people that there are to do that. You know, it might be to flip that around, where you had planning and zoning commission first, and then it went to city staff when we're looking at that on how they're addressing this stuff. So those are some things that I think we need to have a question on what's the right way to put that together.
I had that same question. I actually drew circles around every place in the proposal that was the first point of contact, was with staff as opposed to planning and zoning. And it was at the kickoff of every stage of their project, every different phase of their project.
And the other thing too is looking, and we talked to Stantec today, you know, on addressing and getting the community involvement. And I think it's so important, you know, community is definitely there. And I also think the involvement for the EDA is gotta be core to what's going on, because they're the ones that are gonna be out developing and bringing in the people that there are. And that steering committee concept that there is by having that together, I think is pretty important on the way that they looked at that. I mean, can Stantec do that? Have they thought about doing that?
Would they be open to doing that?
Open to doing it, because again, it's EDA has gotta be at the core with what we're gonna do. It's gotta be. Yeah.
My comment was gonna be if you wanted to do secondary interviews, that it might be prudent to do them as joint. Either with
Oh.
just EDA or
And
since we're all serving as
Oh, no,
counselors.
and
all
I'm
serving
with
them,
you
so all
on
three of them.
that, you know, I think that they both have some tremendous things to bring about. I felt that the graphic discussion, was pretty strong too with WFP.
WSB.
WSB, okay, on how they were looking and with that, when you have people that are coming in, okay, the more graphic you can have, I think the better it is for people to understand what's really going on versus reading code. You know, so,
And that's the point of doing the illustrations, right? And people learn in different ways.
yeah,
Some of us,
Absolutely.
you know, can read text and, you know, build a picture in our heads,
Mhm.
or, you know, other people really need to see.
I also like
blueprints.
the concept that they have brought up of going out and setting up a booth that, let's take what our existing city events and existing
Mhm.
city outreach opportunities are and go throw a booth out there, go throw something out at T-Ball, go throw
Mhm.
something out at, if they do the food trucks this next summer again, and,
Mhm.
you know,
but and I'm with you on that, but I think we need to have something that doesn't wait till next summer.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where it's like, what can we do? And, you know, Stantec came up with an idea of having somebody at the gas stations, okay? You know, everybody's gotta get gas here in town, more than likely that they will, that you can get that involvement with those people, you know, at that point. You know, so I thought that was good that Phil had brought that up as well on that type of a
or the
thinking, but.
VFW having their taco nights or their pancake breakfast.
Yeah, we've gotta find some way to get a hold of the community,
Right.
okay? And, cause once you've got the community involvement with this, then you've got them and you're going the right direction. And they feel they're a part of, okay, and that's so critical with what we have at this stage.
Well, and we wanna make sure that we've got that feedback so that we know what we're scoping out is truly where
In the
they
right
wanna go.
direction. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because without their buy-in, it's gonna be a long battle. And what we want is, and I don't say this being glib at all, is we really want to grease the wheels with the residents of this community and have them fully on board. And all of us just paddling in the same direction.
You know,
We're
and
just
again,
stewards.
yeah, when we're doing this, it might be a good time for EDA as well. You know, to even be involved with that somewhat, at least that they see the interaction of what's going on with the EDA, you know, so.
Oh, I definitely think it's kind of a partnership in that respect. Because, you know, the EDA has to have their fingers on the pulse of what the people, the community want.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're stewards of the community and of their needs and wants. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, to me, I think it's a great idea.
Was it something that we would, somewhere we have, pick on some kind of an event or some happening around the city where we could engage something like that to happen a little bit sooner than National Night Out?
So
It's great.
what's
It's a
the
great
fire
event.
hall have
That's-
planned for the next event?
Well, I was just thinking about that, and I do know we've got stuff coming up both for Halloween. We've got things coming up for Santa Claus, so he's gonna ride around town, and I'm sure if there was some backing, we could come up with something, you know, for the time that we're looking for. It's community outreach is one of the goals of those organizations over there, is they are trying to make sure that we're keeping everybody together, because there is a need in our community to have these, to start developing a personality that is distinctly Orinoco.
Mhm.
Like I said, I was so impressed with just this fire thing that we were doing for putting out fires. Walking in there, every chair of every table was taken and filled. Every single one, and that's at 5 o'clock. But you had the kids, you had the younger, you know, adults that were there because of that, and that's who we're trying to reach is that group that I think we need to.
Generation.
Well, they
address.
had the local Girl Scouts in and they did a very similar thing in the last week, and they had another organization that works more with disadvantaged youth just a few days prior to that. So they've really been doing a good job of reaching out and
Yeah, people watch it, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, so that's something that could pull in. Just thinking ideas, just
Mhm,
kind of throwing stuff against the wall.
I think there's opportunities there, and I don't think I look at the time scale on any of these and think we can't figure out some opportunity along the way where I think if we put something out and it's come meet your zoning, I don't know that we're gonna have too many
No,
people
no, no.
show up, but I do think if we structure it right, and here's your opportunity to do this, and as a bonus, we're gonna have a booth there and do whatever we're going to do and fill out our survey or look at these pictures and put a grain of corn in whichever jar you think is the picture you want. You know, there's different ways to do that without technology and in person. Even have little kids have the opportunity to, which one do you like more than this one? Or,
It's the FaceTime conversations.
yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things I love about the idea of putting the kernel of corn in the jar for the idea that you like best. Jim and I actually saw that up at the state fair for a particular question, a poll that was being done. And it's really interesting because it's not this electronic disconnected thing that you're experiencing and that you're being told what the result was of the poll, but you're getting to see it in real time, right in front of you. This is actually the work of the hands of the people that have been voting. And these have a little bit of stuff in them, but this one over here is almost full, you know? It's pretty compelling. It's hard to deny at that moment that this is the idea that has risen to the top, you know?
As a question, Ryland,
Yeah.
okay, and what you've been working with EDA. Have you come up with other ideas on getting community involvement that we're not talking about here that we might be missing?
We haven't got into the detail because we're kind of relying on CETA's experience, but I think we all recognize the importance of that, and it's just a matter, but we really haven't spent time on, community engagement other than workshops and stuff like that. It's nothing really unique, I guess, other than having a card table at McGasson go that we haven't got that level of detail, but, it goes back to things that obviously we will spend time looking at.
No, because I mean, it's got to work together with what's going on with EDA. You know, if we do this by itself, it's not going to work.
We don't wanna trouble our residents with two approaches either. It's gotta be a single joint with them, so.
It does, it has to present a unified front, right? Because otherwise they're gonna get confused. So is EDA not actually in agreement with city council or with planning and zoning? But if we all have the same vision, yeah, we can have a congruent message.
And
that
that's-
we're
that's the
sending
key
out.
message for EDA of how we approach with our residents. EDA in every town around here has had one for 30 years. So this group of people, they're maybe aware of EDA, but really, that's all part of our communication engagement to the cities is the best way to do that in the first 2 to 3 months.
And you wanna, collectively generate the same level of excitement we feel about the city, what's gonna, be coming this way too.
Yeah,
And limit the disinformation or misinformation that is shared among neighbors.
Mhm.
yeah, because I mean, if you look at the interaction of people as a whole, even watching council meetings or whatever else, it's not a big participation in the community. So people are still going around not knowing what's happening, but if you had a united front that you're showing what the city is really trying to do as a city. Okay, here's a couple of things, but to bring more of the core of what the city is.
talking with one voice,
Yeah.
Mhm.
really.
Mhm.
And to me, that comes back to that steering committee idea.
No, and I think that's a wonderful idea. I think they've come up with something that makes sense, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a home run. That's that idea.
Yeah, that is.
Mhm.
I think if I remember right, we had a steering committee on one of the first sewer meetings that we had.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know where all that went after that.
Had you looked at a steering committee, Ryland, at all, at that concept that there is?
No, not the details, other than just the EDA commission itself, but.
But we,
Would EBA be open to like a steering committee type situation with this?
For the purpose of determining. Working with the selection, whoever for your zoning.
Not just for this, but for going forward,
I
that
think for the
whatever we're
community.
doing, we've got to be working together and to have a committee that's working with what we're doing here for rewriting the code and what direction EDA is going.
But especially for that community engagement piece, I think.
I think the answer to what the community wants is gonna drive everything we do.
Absolutely.
And it's gonna
At
drive
least
the
it
EDA
should.
work, and it should be driving the code work.
Mhm.
Well, EDA is made up of 5 residents and 2 council members. So we will be getting feedback of how best to approach the overall community, you know, so.
But- yeah.
I can see the steering committee, but at the same time, we're just adding another level of work for people.
I say oversight.
But I do think having the steering committee concept there would bring these groups together, so you're not repeating these conversations, and every time you repeat things, things get lost. When they start to bring here's what we're hearing from the community results, there's one home for it. And that's the same message then that goes out everywhere.
Well,
So that's a good comment. I think too that when pending the approval of the EDA, we started in November. I think that's what the EDA contact Rebecca Charles, who's going to be here one day every week. Hopefully with approval of the contract, but I think will bring a lot of expertise in community engagement. And she draws from all the other CETA representatives of all the other cities as well. I think we're gonna be relying on them to really help us guide us through this process and. Maybe it's coming back to the council with representatives, or maybe it's EDA standalone and, you know. The detail of the zone is really in PZ and council and city staff, and yes, the awareness needs to be out there for the residents, but the actual. Work, if you will, is gonna be assigned to the different groups, but I think that, the steering committee, I guess, I'm just kind of warm to it, but I just don't completely understand the purpose and what's the outcome of having a steering committee versus representation on the EDA and representation from the P and Z to the council and so.
I think it would be one more checkpoint where you've got 3 different entities that are all doing their work. And if there is representation from those 3 groups, and there are people that want to participate, because I understand that you had residents from the community that were not chosen to be part of the EDA. Maybe they would want to be part of the steering committee, because the one thing that I don't want to run into is, having a hired gun through the EDA, even though you've got community involvement in that group. I don't want that one group to be steering all the rest of us.
I would have more of a difficult time with the person or people that aren't living in the city,
Mhm.
being on any of them committees. We don't need somebody from the outside coming and steering what we're doing here.
I would
just
say
don't
that.
think, I think that's a no.
Yeah.
I think the person coming from the EDAs can certainly help with a lot of the work that's going on, but I agree that the opinions of the folks that live in town
Are the ones
are
that
the
weigh the
ones
most.
we need to make sure that we are all speaking with that one voice, with one idea. And I do think the idea of that steering committee will bring all these groups together. And so that is where that voice and that conversation lives.
I think the strongest part of the steering committee would have to be people from town.
Mhm.
It can't be somebody
Agreed,
from the
agreed.
outside doing the steering part of it.
No.
Mhm.
No, it would be the community members.
No, and that's-
I've talked about ADA as subcommittees of identifying, because within our city, within the EDA, we have a realtor, a business owner,
Judge.
retired judge, a market planner on an outside company, so But we have talked about subcommittees to help us gather that input coming back to the EDA. If we pick a community engagement, we may assign it to person A, and that person A goes out and gets people to help them put that topic together. So we have talked about subcommittees, and that's something that CEDA's brought to EDA to share with us about how they do it in other communities. So
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know if we were gonna go to the step of doing a steering committee, I don't know that I would want them to be a subcommittee of EDA, because then it would have to come up through EDA to be, disseminated to the other entities that are involved. I'd rather it be a free-form group that has the freedom to form their own opinions unfiltered, and they share their unfiltered information with three key groups that are, you know, the driving force within the city. They are steering the driving force at that point, without any type of oversight or influence from specifically any one of the three groups that could color or influence their input. I think that their input should be pure and unadulterated.
So basically our goal today is to decide if we're gonna choose one of these three.
Or an option to play around with.
Look back.
You know, cause I think that we've got some comments of what we like to address their questions with Stantec. On how they have things put together, and I think we also have some questions on WSB as well, especially with the interaction on a monthly basis, or whenever they come up with a code issue to the office on getting on the phone and who's gonna be there to do that. And I didn't get that into it when we were having the presentation to know what we've got there for support. So I'd still like to go and say, okay, we've eliminated one, we've got two. Can we talk again to both of those and see which one comes out on top? That,
And I would think that's normal. I mean, even in interviewing staff.
you know, even though we like to present something to council on Tuesday, I think this is such a big step on what we're doing that if we took a little bit of extra time, that it's gonna be well worth it that we make the right
I
decision.
think a rush to judgment would be the wrong thing to do.
Well, let me ask this, Kathy, did you bring the original RFP with you today
I did.
that was sent out? Let's take a look at that timeline and just see what postponing a month to make a recommendation would affect in what remains in the timeline. And because I'm in agreement with you all that rushing to a decision would not be beneficial nor prudent. But let's see what exactly it is that we're affecting as we are determining what we want to do in the way of making a decision.
Let's put this here.
Oh, thank
You wanna
you.
grab it? You can.
Okay,
So we're a week of October 9th. So far we're on track. with
Okay.
What our original proposal was.
so, and then she's got here for the week of October 12th, zoning consideration and recommendation to council. So there's number one.
That was last night.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah.
I don't even know what day it is. Thank you. I
So
appreciate
because of the
that.
third interview, that date did get rolled, but
To today.
yes.
Okay. So, council consideration week of October 17, that would get pushed to November. Contract negotiation to begin the day after council consideration, if it was reasonable to expect that they would be able to take that information and make a final decision within a day. Project kickoff, fourth quarter of 2023. It seems to me that if we were able to negotiate a contract within a 2-month time frame, that we may possibly at the very outside, if that time frame is a realistic goal, that we may be able to have a project kickoff in like late January or early February of 2024. So we could possibly be still 1 month behind our timeline,
Still fairly close.
still
there-
fairly close.
We'll be off in our timeline, but I know when it comes to construction projects, because this is actually a construction type, you're constructing this. A lot of times in a project like that, it ends up causing delays and causes.
The delay in
That causes added expenses is where I'm going with it, so
Yeah,
I make sure it would cause that if we're gonna delay it.
So,
Yeah, and I'm just,
so if we look at what we had originally would have been October 12th, last night would have been our zoning consideration, so we'd be on November 9th if we were gonna bring it back to our regular meeting unless we decided to do an extra one in there. We will, it sounds like if we do go this route, for sure have at least one more meeting in there with a second interview and a finalization of a recommendation there. But that would, if we did it, got that done, we could still have our November 9th regular zoning meeting, and that goes then the following week would be council.
I think it goes to the
Or no, it's
21st.
on the 21st, so that would actually give us even a little more time
Well,
if we really
in
needed it.
addition to what you're saying, Kathy, maybe is this something that we would wanna have a special meeting for that would include P and Z, city council and the EDA?
and we
to
could,
give
I mean,
feel?
there's no
give
problem
us
pulling, yeah. to be able to-
It could be broken in there, so it wouldn't be totally out a month, but
Mhm.
maybe then by next month, we would be on board to maybe adopt one of them.
Because I would still like to see us get this done and
Right.
approved at some point in time that's reasonable, and I think 1 month to get these other items that we're talking about done is a reasonable amount of time. But I would like to get it done by that next city council meeting in November, because then you start moving into the holidays.
Yeah, no, and I'm just,
Yeah.
again, I think that taking the two that have made it to that, okay, it's like, okay, you're in the semifinals, let's go for the finals.
Mhm.
And I think that they would be open to that too, that, okay, these are the two that are there. You know, let's take a look, so.
Well, and as I'm looking at the tentative project timeline, we go from project kickoff in the fourth quarter, which is probably pushed into the first part of the first quarter of 2024. The very next part is plan review, zoning diagnosis, and directions report that would be due March 31st. We might actually be able to close the gap on some of the time that we lost by taking the time now to do our due diligence. We might actually be able to make up a little bit of time in that segment
Mhm.
and get closer. If we don't hit March 21st right on, we may be just the middle of April as opposed to the end of April or middle of May. I think that this is a place where we could possibly regain a little bit of time lost.
Mhm.
Do you agree?
Or even from that April through September where we're talking about drafting the plan, land use, right? There could be some time there too.
Yeah, we've got a 6-month period that would go from what I just spoke of, that was due March 31st. Plan review, zoning diagnosis, and directions report. From March 31st until September 30th, we are talking about initial draft of the planning and land use regulations. That's a 6-month period that if we wanted to do a little bit more meeting time, a little bit more whatever it is that we need to do in a 5-month period as opposed to a 6-month period, we have some time there where we might make up a little bit of time, you know, between the project kickoff and the plan review stage. We could actually make up a little bit more time in that 6-month period. So I think that taking the time at this moment for due diligence, which is always a good idea,
Mhm.
I think that it would be a good thing. And what I would propose at this moment, thank you, Kathy, that was very helpful.
If I throw one more thing out there. related to the
Absolutely,
date,
please.
Is that both of our two top candidates in their timeline plan also show that long period at the end. So to me, that easily could go from a 6 to a 5 month. And if we do that, both of them looking at their dates as well, that gives us the ability to even push out our public outreach area into that May, June, where we are gonna be able, more families will be out, other age groups will be more
Springtime,
active.
yeah.
Our seniors will be out because there's not ice to be falling on.
Right.
You know, we've got a lot of opportunities that might come as a result of this
Mhm.
actually as well.
Okay.
And I still think we could meet our goal of making this run and get done by year end. Next year.
So,
Yeah, I don't see anyone wanting to give us answers to a survey when they're at the gas station and it's 30 below or whatever.
oh,
Inside.
come on now, really? Oh my
So-
goodness.
Gassing up their car.
True
right
words,
now.
true words have never been spoken.
We will run the pumps for you while we.
So can I make a motion that we're going to go for an interview, for a second interview with the top two candidates? To be determined, because I don't have a timeline exactly for that, but to have that maybe go to council that we're down to two, so at least they know we're moving ahead.
Right. That's our status.
Or that, yeah, part of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were you looking at a joint session then? To do that, and would you be looking at a,
For me, at this moment in time, to answer that
We
question,
could
I'm not
figure it out.
looking at a joint session. I'm looking at this body finishing its work according to what we prescribed that we were gonna do, to where we can make our recommendation.
okay,
And if there is a joint meeting that needs to take place after that to assist in making the final decision or anything, then I absolutely would be open, and I believe that everybody else in this body would be as well.
just a question. That's
Yeah,
all.
no,
I'm not
that's-
here to-
no, That was a good question.
Good time to propose it before you throw it.
So if,
Yeah.
if I'm, let's reel this in just a little bit. There was a motion.
You know, second.
So there has been a motion and a second to set up a set of second interviews with WSB and Stan Tech for the purpose of making the right
Further
choice
consideration.
for further consideration. Thank you. So with the motion and the second being in place, this is now open for discussion to that matter specifically.
I'm good with the idea of having that second interview, make sure we're doing our due diligence there, and we've gotten some other ideas that it's good to bounce off and see how they would respond to those. If they're looking like that's something that they'd be strong in, how are both looking at that? Different aspects. The other thing I do think beyond that is get a list of references and
Actually, let's speak to that after we
Okay.
complete this process,
Yeah.
because I have it written right here and you're reading my mind.
Yes.
So I like that.
So that would be, as far as the meetings go, absolutely. I see that as a must do, not a should we do. And I would like to hear what they have to say again. And I was very impressed with both proposals. Actually, all three were great, but those two definitely are very strong that we're looking at.
Thank you.
So I would like to approach that list of references. I mean,
We're not talking about that in this moment. We're only talking about, the discussion is around the motion, which is having the second set of interviews, but we are gonna talk about that because it's key. Absolutely.
Can I just make one suggestion if I may?
Hmm.
Let's not have the interviews after lunch.
You know what?
I did feel bad for SRF.
Yeah, it was definitely more challenging.
Yeah.
At that point, you're absolutely correct. I felt it too, or didn't feel it, as the case may be. So,
I'm gonna listen to Ryland's input on that, because he's gonna watch it over the weekend to see if he had something else to come out just for.
I'll send you emails.
so is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor of the second interview for Stantec and WSB, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is carried. We will be contacting those two candidates and letting them know that we are going to invite them to a second interview. With that being said, there's a couple of things to determine about that. Number one, is that going to be an in-person interview, which I definitely lean toward myself?
Yeah.
Or a virtual interview, which it's just so hard to have a real connection with people in that situation. The other thing to discuss is what I have written down and what both Paul and Kathy referenced is checking references. And my suggestion for that is that 3 of the commissioners who volunteer for that would make the phone calls, and that we would, as a commission, and maybe this is something that we want to be thinking about over the next few days, but that we would create the list of predetermined questions and that we would ask the same exact questions of both candidates. So is everybody in agreement that that would be a good thing to do? Okay, then what we want to do is we want to figure out who those 3 commissioners will be. I will volunteer to be one of them. And then when we will create that list of predetermined questions and how we will go about doing that. Do we want to do it right now in this meeting setting? We've been in here for an hour and we've pretty much completed the business that we came into this meeting to do. We could take 15 to 20 minutes to brainstorm on that. And then the people that are going to be doing the checking of references, they could literally take the list out of here today and start making their phone calls. Maybe not at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, but probably won't get a whole lot of people picking up the phone, especially when I'm calling from my California number.
One question.
Yes,
Can we do that? It's not already on the agenda. It's another item to talk about.
we'll put this under other business if we want to. And we could even do a vote to determine whether or not that other business is appropriate for this meeting space. Thank you.
Just making sure we cover.
No, I'm appreciative of that. I like to follow the rules, most
See somebody
definitely,
Getting back on it, so.
most definitely. So, well, let's do this. Is there a motion? And just so everybody is aware, to change the agenda after the agenda has been approved, according to Robert's Rules of Order, takes 2/3 vote of the voting body. Okay? So is there a motion to work on creating that list of predetermined questions at this moment in time through an amendment of the agenda?
I make a motion to
We've already
go
stated
through
it. Yeah.
everything that you stated.
Is there a second?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Jim Phillips and seconded by Kathy Brentrucker that we would amend the agenda at this point in the meeting to include other business. And that other business is creating the list of predetermined questions to our remaining candidates for their the checking of references. And so we will open this up for discussion at this point. Anybody who has any comment that they would like to make or any pro argument or con argument is absolutely appropriate at this time.
One question I have. Do you think they would have handed us these references without them being good to start with?
Say that again.
That
Do you think-
is,
Do you think they would have handed us this list of references without them already knowing if they're gonna get a good reference?
well, I personally would not put down a reference that is somebody that's gonna go, Wendy's the worst.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm just expecting that,
You're gonna hear,
I don't know if we need to do that. Totally.
I think it's still worth
yeah,
following up to see what is their responsiveness, because that's a very easy one, is when you contact them, how long does it take them to get back to you?
I think we'll get
Absolutely, I
something
think
on
that that's
point.
critical and how detailed.
That's probably the biggest question of
Yeah.
all.
Right, because I think if we put the right questions together, I think we're gonna glean out of it what we need.
And I think not more importantly, but of equal importance, that we are going to ascertain that our gut was right about what we were thinking. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for confirmation that what I am thinking and feeling is actually on track.
So I'm just, for my clarification. I guess I was seeing this being more code-based. Kind of developing that whole thing, but the day-to-day kind of, work for any applications that might come in would still be going to Phil at this point,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're
so-
not severing anything that's in
It's-
existence.
We're trying to
Okay, I
set
just
this
wanted
up,
to
we're
make
trying,
sure.
Yeah, everything is totally on track for the way that we've done business.
Okay,
Nothing in that regard is changing.
okay,
We're looking at future stuff, so
okay,
we are still
Yeah.
totally.
just based on
This is
that, the
the
way that question you were talking
Yeah, no, I,
about.
yeah, that's
responsiveness.
what I was trying to do.
responsiveness is, we're trying to set up focus groups, we're trying to set up a steering committee meeting. How responsive are they in getting
Got
back to us, and do they show up on time?
And just so you know, my agenda item to begin with was broad-based. Talking about.
Oh, okay. So would have included this?
Yes,
Okay, well, just already we have a motion and a second on the floor, so we have to see it through to completion. And we have a commissioner who has stepped out of the room for a moment. So is there any more discussion at this point? Observations, questions? Anything? And if not, then we'll just turn on the Jeopardy music until Jim gets back. Yes, Ryland,
I may add a comment.
absolutely.
One thing you may want to do, and I made a note to myself, is just to go out to those cities and look at their websites, look at the codes, see how they were done, how they were illustrated, and that should give you a good idea what either WSB or Stantec has done versus a conversation. You can still have the conversation if you like, but that may tell you more what you're looking for than
Well, and
a
I
verbal.
think it can tell us,
Verbal can always be positive, but.
it can speak to the end result, but it won't necessarily speak to the, how quick do they get back to you, which we know Stantec is really great about that. I would want to know that that is true of the other firm as well, because for me, that one piece would be a deal breaker, or could be a deal breaker,
the other thing, are you talking about the website of the
references.
vendor or the
No, of the
reference?
city
Cities.
itself.
Well,
That they work for.
Yeah,
the
and I'm
reference
just gonna,
cities.
in fairness to them, depending on the size of the city, they may have a webmaster, right, on staff
Mm,
that's gonna have, more, time to dedicate to making sure that everything is updated.
Right.
I think
We may,
the content is what I'd be looking
Yeah.
at, not how well it flows, but the content. And the one thing I would ask the city is, so you got the new code. Is it working, or are you still having to do a lot of variances? Are you still having a lot of text amendment issues coming up that you need to fix?
mhm.
we digressed.
Well, you have to,
Yeah, we waited for you.
you just kind of looking at,
And I'll throw one other.
WSP site. They have so many different things that they did this for this city, but not for this city. There's not, it doesn't look like they're in charge of any one thing at any.
Could be what every
It
city
depends on what the
requested.
cities want, and that.
What did they request in their audit?
Yeah, what did they need in
Yeah,
the
it's
way
an
of help?
a la carte.
Yeah.
And it might be another one for the references is how well was the end product compared to what your original ask was?
Well, and as I look at their references, they have 3 for WSB. I honestly, for me, I don't need to know anything about Stantec in regard to references. We have our own personal experience. So that's just a given. We know that situation works. But because the connection was so unique and so immediate with the other group, WSB, one of the references, a community development director, doesn't say from where, but another person is from the city of, what is that name? MHHTOMEDI.
Matamidi?
Matamidi.
Is that part of her,
This is her
The last
package.
page
Oh,
of this.
Yeah.
See, they've done a lot of stuff for Monterey, Rosemont.
And the other one is the city of North St. Paul. And so to be able, those are probably gonna be the two more telling references, possibly if they have been contracted with them. But we can also look at the cities that they've worked with. And we could call their city administrators or city planners or planning and zoning commissioners and ask, how has it been? You know?
You can drive through the cities, you see what they look like. You know, the biggest things are response times what we're looking at,
Mhm.
you know.
Response time is a huge one.
But they, you drive through Rosemont, you can't tell the difference between Rosemont and Apple Valley when you drive through there, the architecture and stuff that they've done, they kind of follow lead in type stuff for from one city to the next. A lot of times you can tell the difference,
Right.
but they're basically the same. You don't know which street the crossing is, changes the city limits.
Yeah, and that
Like on
might,
vacation and let's check these things out, is that what
Go
that?
to
and that
Picture of
might
Apple Valley.
indicate a cookie cutter approach too.
You know,
Yeah.
that's very,
Absolutely.
that's very much what I'd like to see not happen here.
did you do a vote? Yeah.
No,
Motion second.
no, we're in discussion phase.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're talking-
We were
Is
waiting
it
for
still
Jim.
about the agenda?
We're waiting. That's right. You're right, you guys. So we got off track
Questions?
while we were waiting for Jim to come back. This is about, thank you for reeling us in. This is about voting to formulate questions right now in this meeting as an amended agenda item under other business. So is there any further discussion regarding that very specific question?
No.
Hearing none, this will come to a vote. I will call for the vote. All those in favor of spending the next 20 minutes approximately, creating the questions for the references, please say aye.
I,
And all those opposed, please say no. Okay, so we have our vote. What I've got down so far is response time. And looking at their city websites and driving through their contracted cities, the work places where they've done work, which those two things do not really,
they're not really
no,
questions.
they are not questions. So
Timeliness is, timeliness of deliverables.
timeliness of deliverables.
Yeah.
And so what do we have to compare that to? Like, what if they say, well, what deliverables are you speaking
Well,
of?
overall, timeliness of, deliverables, did they meet their deadlines? Do they consistently come
Got it.
outside of their deadlines?
If you look at the project matrix, and you look at the first item that there is, okay, is zoning code rewrites. And so you've got a number of cities that there are that you can call to follow up. I mean, it's
Mhm.
a number of them.
Let's see,
So, and I think that Kathy had said early, like, after they have rewritten the code, how many variances are being requested? What other things are going to be directly relatable to a semi or a completely obsolete code that you would be getting a whole bunch of applications for these specific things. So it's like, after they did their job for you, how many variances, were you still getting requests for? Were you still getting, was there a difference in the request you were getting?
For conditional use. permits.
Exactly, that kind of thing. How would we go about wording that question in a clear and
With
concise
their
way?
code rewrite, Are they seeing fewer issues that are needing to be resolved related to the new code?
Okay, so with your code rewrite, have you been seeing fewer situations?
Yep.
Where
Ordinance rewrites are necessary.
ordinance rewrites or special or variance.
Or variances, and we could do two questions. One is, are you having to rewrite the code? And one is, are you having to do a lot of exceptions to the code?
Okay, so the first question then would be, with your code rewrite, have you been seeing fewer situations where ordinance rewrites are necessary?
Yep.
And then the next one would be, let's say that again.
Say the same thing, but where you're having to make exceptions to your code.
Okay, with your code rewrite. Do you find that you have to make, that you're getting applications for exceptions
Are necessary.
where exceptions are necessary? With your code rewrite, do you find that you're still receiving requests for, what would be the term there? My brain's not working.
Code exceptions or variances?
For variances? Or code exceptions? And we can refine these questions as well, but these are great.
It will give you a
Start.
topic
Absolutely.
areas to go down.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and is that question really, are you seeing as many? Because, we want it to go down, right?
Do you find you're receiving as many? How's
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
As many requests for variances
These.
or code exceptions?
And I know that they also gave us that list of
Two.
with that city of Matamidi,
Two.
but they did talk a lot about Tonka Bay.
That's right, they did, didn't they?
And Tonka Bay is a population that's closer to Orinoco than even Matamidi has, so.
Tonka Bay was brought up in the afternoon group. Okay.
No, it was
It was
the,
WSB
it was WSB.
because Lori Johnson had done some zoning ordinance updates and rewrites for
Oh, yes, he did talk. about that.
cities of Wayzata, Sunfish Lake, and Tonka Bay, and it's on page 3 actually in their booklet too, that they talked about that.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty close here too geographically. You got Wabasha, you've got Rochester Township.
I've got another question that's a little different that we could ask too is,
Chatfield.
with the code rewrite, is it becoming easier for staff to understand the code and not having to basically get a consultation to understand the code each time? I don't know how to word that, but Sunny, maybe you can help me there.
thank you,
I'm
Robin.
wanting to know if
Just
the
email the RFP again.
Oh, yeah.
if the newly revised code makes
Bye,
sense.
Ryan.
or-
Have a good weekend.
Oh, it's in your packet from last month.
Code rewrite. Is there more clarity? Something about clarity?
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Well, I just
it,
want to know if the city staff can use the code as written or if we're still having to send out for
Interpretate.
interpretations all the
Yeah.
time.
well, and that would go also for the community that is applying for these things.
Yeah.
Are they having to ask
Yeah,
for
are you seeing,
interpretation?
are you seeing fewer? Number of.
Is there a good way to
requirements
phrase
for
that one, Sunny, that it would make sense? Because at the end of all this, at the end of next year, we'll have a new code in place. And I want it to make sense. And when people come in, boom, it's clear. Here's your answer. Boom, it's clear. Here's
Yeah.
your answer. What I don't want is, here's our new code. And the question shows up and there's no boom. It's, let me check
Right,
with our zoning and planning.
Well, and
folks.
not only that, but think about the time that staff is spending giving
I was just gonna say, take the
explanation.
pressure off the
Yeah.
staff, make it clear enough
Mhm.
so people can understand it. And it's not in this legal jargon.
Want people to have a zoning certification to understand what we
Right.
need to
Thank
do.
you.
Exactly,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So That's however we want to phrase that question. What I want to know is, does it work for everyday use? And I want to know if it works for the employees, for the staff, and for the citizens and residents of their town.
How
And-
easily understandable is the code that you've written?
Yeah.
By all people involved.
But I
Something
would,
along that
in the
line.
question, I would
Broad
give
question.
specific, I would give specifics. Is it understandable for your staff? Is it
Mhm.
understandable for your residents? And is it understandable for those who want to build, develop, or move to town, you know?
Yeah.
Those are really, I'd say, our categories of folks that are gonna be looking at this.
Yeah, is it requiring additional?
I just don't want people to have a certification in zoning to go out and read the code.
Right. If I can offer some questions, one would be, who in your city is responsible as the code specialist? Because some cities are gonna have a planner on staff. Some will, and I'm headed toward bringing somebody with planning background on to also help with all the building inspections, but I digress. But that would be my question is, and depending on the size of the city, it could be the city administrator, it could be. But that would be the question. Who in your city is the go-to person to explain code?
That probably,
Is that gonna be something that would be reflective on the city planner contracting firm?
Well, because where that goes is if they have a designated, the next part of that question would be, how often does that person need to reach out to your contracted planner, your vendor? Because that's where we start getting into the costs, right? And the costs, and how easy is it to use?
Okay,
So
so
is that
can you
probably-
rephrase that? again?
Okay, so
Who
one
in your city?
is responsible for administering city code and zoning code.
City and zoning code?
Is there a difference?
Well, your city code is the big part and we're trying to kind of, the zoning code is specific to zoning issues. There may
Right, we
be
don't have-
others,
we don't have
but they're all
zoning.
by
We don't
ordinance.
have a zoning person giving out citations for somebody driving a golf cart.
Okay, so you could just say your zoning ordinance.
yeah. I would assume at the intro to all of these interviews will be, what is the name of your city? What is the population of your city? And how far away are you from any type of larger city, urban metro type of?
Okay, that's real
Well, you
rapid
could
fire for
probably-
me.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
could
thinking out loud.
probably Google that information.
Yeah,
That-
I'm just
but-
thinking at the top of our
Yeah,
little interview thing.
Future land. use.
Yeah, the
So I
very
was-
generic question.
Yeah, just some of that very generic background. So before we even jump into question one,
to
we
the
have.
hard ones.
So I think there was two parts to your question, though I only got the first part.
Okay, so who in your city is responsible for understanding and administering
Okay. got
whatever.
that.
zoning ordinance? Oh. How often does that person have to reach out to contracted vendor? And that contracted vendor is gonna be
Mhm,
whoever you've
Our firm.
listed, right?
mhm.
Okay, the other question that I would throw out there is. Who is your previous planner? What firm did you use before WSB?
Interesting.
And why did you change? What made you choose?
But who says that any of these have changed vendors?
Well, no,
Yeah.
but I mean, if they went back to the same vendor, then they were satisfied with the
Right.
vendor, okay, but
Yeah.
that's a good
So
question.
who was your
They-
previous,
They
who
do
was
an
your-
RFP
Why
and
did you
end of
choose this
state
vendor?
who was your previous planner? Why did you change?
if you change.
Or when was the last time they looked at planners? Or did
When
you-
was the last time you were looking for a city planner?
Well,
Is that
not,
what you're
not
thinking?
necessarily city planner, because that's a
Yeah.
specific position that a lot of people have. And you heard it mentioned that they were city planners and then went to this.
When was the
So,
last time you,
Revised your code?
No,
Updated your phone?
basically, when was the last time you looked?
You changed.
Look,
Do an
you
outside
look for a
entity
different
for
vendor.
consulting?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, look for a different vendor, or however we wanna say it, to, do these, perform these duties.
Or it could be, to make it easy, it could be, how many years have you used this company?
Yeah.
And who were you with
Yeah,
before?
yeah, really easy.
That might be an easier way to do that one.
Yeah, yeah,
Cause that'll get our answer about what we're looking
straight,
for.
straight to the point.
Oh, yeah.
Say that again. So how many
How
years
many
have you
years?
used WSV?
And
And-
who were you with before?
Who were you?
And why did you change?
What was the reason for changing?
Yeah, was that through an RFP process or?
Okay, and then Kathy, you said that you wanted to put at the top of this,
I think it would.
what is the size of your city? What was the second question you had? You had three generic questions that
Yeah,
you asked.
it's, you know, that your city, what is your population, and maybe just tell us a little bit about the demographics of your city, you know, is it a younger, is it an older city, is it?
Yeah, bigger projects going on.
Oh, and I think it was,
Development.
how far away are you from a more urban area, you know?
Yeah.
Cause are you one of these small towns that's got everything, or are you a bedroom community, you know, I think we're gonna wanna try to get apples to apples when we're doing some
Mhm.
comparisons.
How far are you from metropolitan area? Bedroom community. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to type these into an email. And I don't think I have everybody on the commission's email and phone numbers yet. Sunny, can you send those out to us, please? So that we have communication. I don't have contact for Scott or for Colleen in any form. I think we talked about that a while back, that we were gonna make sure we updated contact information between us. And then I think we got busy with a bunch of other stuff and it kind of, got lost.
That's been the August meeting. I remember talking about it.
Right.
You weren't here for the
And the,
September meetings.
right, and the hesitancy is that by communicating amongst yourselves, you open yourself up to potential for open meeting.
Well, if I send the questions out with blind copy to everybody. And they're only responding to me with, this is what I think about these questions. I think we're gonna be okay with that, don't
Okay.
you?
Yep.
And would you copy me as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just so you know, Montebita is in Washington County. Population was 76 at 2010 census.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got,
I was getting mixed up with them.
right now, I've got 8 questions, and one of them is like a 5-part question. And so what I'll do is, I'm just gonna copy and paste this in the rough draft that it is. I will blind CC everybody, and if you could look at this, massage the questions, if you come up with additional questions, throw them on there, and then, well, how about if we say that by next Friday at the close of business, everybody has responded if they're going to,
Mhm.
and.
Yeah, you wanna make it short and sweet, cause if you have too many that are on
Oh,
it,
yeah.
they're not gonna
Just put the
respond.
deadline.
Just
Yeah,
let's do real,
I am.
couple.
So deadline, today's the 13th, so deadline is gonna be October 20 at 5 PM. How's that? And then what I will do is, I'm gonna look at the list. And how about if I email what I've received back to the two of you and me? And we can work on refining it down to what it will actually be. And then by the week of October 23, whoever the 3 people are that are gonna volunteer to do this, they have 2 aside from me. We can start making phone calls the week of October 23.
Okay, who's gonna reschedule these 2 to come back in for another?
Well, I'm sure that Sunny will be doing that.
Will you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wanna give me some dates or schedule?
Yeah, let's
Options
look at
or-
let's look at our calendars while we're here.
And we want these after the reference checks.
Yeah, I would think so.
Or-
Yeah, I think it would be better for us to have that.
Okay, so then what we're gonna be looking at is. Let's say that we schedule them to come back the week of October 30th. Let me look at my calendar, see what
That's what I'm
October,
looking at right now.
what the week of October 30th looks like. I know that for me personally. The last week of the month is always the lightest, but I really prefer to keep it that way because all of us need a break from this stuff at some point in time.
That's my heaviest week is the 30th and 31st, the last 2-3 days, I'm always.
Oh, that's your
I've
tough
got month-end
point.
Reports that I'm.
Sure, close the
work
month.
with and.
Okay, so the week of the 23rd is when we're making the phone calls.
But I could do the first and on, so just those first,
Okay, and our planning and zoning committee meeting is November 9th. So if we were able to bring them back in on the first, the second, or the third, and let's get them both on the same day. And we can do the same kind of thing, like an hour block of time. Set the appointments at a 2-hour interval, just in case. We've got 30 minutes to talk after the meeting. We've got an extra 30 minutes to grab a bite to eat or whatever. And if the meeting runs long, we aren't pushing these 2 groups of people into
or
each
do
other.
we do a 10:30 to noon one day and a 10:30 to noon the next day, so nobody is that after lunch spot again.
Oh, that's true. Well, you know what I find though, is that if we avoid the directly after lunch timeframe.
You do it 3
If we
and
did
5,
it in the, if we
3 and 5.
If we did it at the 5 o'clock hour, all of us have revived by then and we seem to have our brains engaged and functioning. I'm just thinking that for Jim,
Yeah, I can't during the day.
he
most
can't
of the
during the
time.
day. And so, and I don't know, probably Scott is the same way.
Right,
Even though he hasn't been part of this process, neither has Colleen. They are commissioners and they definitely, their opinions carry weight as well.
absolutely.
And so I'm thinking that, what is the earliest that you would be able to be in on like the first or second? Let's try to avoid Friday night if we can.
Yeah.
You know, doing them later in the day will also give a better idea because going forward, I would have to assume some of our touch bases and meetings will be evenings.
Yeah.
There'll be one.
Evenings.
Especially with the different populations in town we're trying to get to, it's, people are gone during the day, kids are at daycare. kids are
We're
at-
trying to, but we're trying to contact these places, they're gonna be around during the day.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
We're talking about.
We're not
the
talking about, we're not talking about the reference calls. We're talking about the second interview process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you okay on the first and second?
Yeah,
Okay, why don't we shoot for 5 and 7?
The
On-
second is Gold Rush, so they would
oh, yeah.
have this.
Room.
Okay, why don't you ask them if they're able to be here on the first then? At 5 and 7 PM, and if that is not happening, then we'll just have to fall back and regroup. Or is there anybody in the room on Friday night?
You don't wanna do that for them to come in on a Friday night. That's going above and beyond. I wouldn't. No.
Okay,
I don't think that that's.
Well, if we were-
We have to be.
well, and here's the
respectful
thing
to
too,
them.
is that if we're gonna be asking them to do appointments, it would probably be best if we're giving them an opportunity to say, can you make, this is our first choice, can you make that date? If not, can you make this date or that date? Because then we're not gonna have them together on the same day, most likely anyways. And if we're gonna look at that, I would also be available on the evening of November sixth and the evening of November eighth.
Are we gonna think about heading south?
Yeah, we are,
So that,
but that is before we were invited
Okay.
to go. Okay,
I'm just.
no, that was a good thought, honey.
I can tell you, okay, so the 7th is an election. So
I know, I didn't
Yeah,
say the
that's right.
seventh.
oh, I thought you were mentioning other just. dates
Yeah,
before.
other
Okay.
dates were, oh,
Okay.
and just now that you've said that, I can't do November sixth, which I said I could, but I can do November eighth, which
Okay.
is the Wednesday.
The other thought is perhaps I could have Gold Rush go to
Different room.
upstairs.
That would be excellent if you could.
Yeah, so let me check on that first.
Yeah, because that one doesn't have to
If we
be
could keep
video.
it to the first and the
Right.
second, I think that that would be ideal.
If we do that, that also gives us time to think about it before we all meet for our next zoning meeting
Yeah,
and make sure our questionnaires and everything. are-
absolutely.
Right, okay. So do I do this alphabetically? We'll throw a coin or something. We're gonna assign, we'll see. Okay.
Well, tell them that this is the primary date that we would like. This is the secondary date. If you,
Whoever responds first, right?
there you go.
There you go.
First
That's-
serve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ask them, and maybe it would be like this. We desire to do this on the same date. You can do it on the first at 5 or 7, on the second at 5 or 7. Whoever pipes up first gets their prime time slot.
And we're going to give it a time slot, right? To just say,
A 2-hour slot.
yeah, is it 2 hours?
That's what we did.
No, we
Yeah,
we
that's
did.
what we
Okay.
did. So we
good.
interviewed for an hour. We actually visited for like 20 minutes after the
Okay.
interview. And both interviews kind of went into the second hour just for a few minutes,
Okay,
but we were able to visit with them and really kind of.
Cause
get-
that's what you wanna have. You wanna have that personal contact. You feel
Absolutely.
Yeah.
comfortable with them
Yeah.
of what you're gonna do, cause we've got a lot of work we're gonna be doing with them,
Mhm.
you know?
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that we have accomplished the goal of this meeting. Are we in agreement?
So do we have our questions?
We've got the preliminary questions. I am going to just literally copy and paste this into an email. I'm gonna blind copy all of the people at this table. And if you could get me Colleen's and Scott's contact information as soon as possible, that would be great. And I will get these out. I will have these out to you, let's say by noon Monday at the latest. So Wendy's deadline, let me write mine in here too, because otherwise I'll forget.
Hey, with that, can I make a motion?
If you can hold on just a second until I'm done typing.
We'll need to get the contact information for them, even how to do it. That with the cities that we're gonna contact.
Monday.
Oh, well, I said we'll need to get the contact information for the reference.
Is Monday
points.
10/16? Is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
At noon. Okay. So you were going to say something, Commissioner Phillips?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second,
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say
Aye.
aye. All those opposed say no. Meeting adjourned at 4:34 PM.
That's perfect. You gotta go home.
I got the buzzer.
Yeah.
The buzzers and.